student loan forgiveness plan. What we know, and what we don't, details have not been released, but keep a watch on the Federal Student Assistance website for updates in the coming days. As graduate student debt eligible, many Americans may be eligible for up to $10,000 in Biden student loan debt forgiveness under a new scheme proposed by President Joe Biden. If they are eligible for Pell awards, the price jumps to $20,000. Here's what we know so far and what that implies for folks who still owe money on their student loans. You are eligible for Biden student loan forgiving if your loan is held by the Department of Education and you make less than $125,000 single or $250,000 as a family. You may be eligible to have up to $10,000 forgiven. If you got Pell grants, which are intended for undergraduates with the greatest financial need, you may be eligible to have up to $20,000 forgiven. If you are a current borrower and a dependent student, your eligibility for relief will be determined by your parents' income rather than your own. The student loan payment freeze will be extended. The payment suspension will be extended once again until December 31. The freeze began in 2020 as a method to assist those who were struggling financially during the COVID-19 epidemic, and it has since been extended multiple times. It was due to expire on August 31st. Until repayments begin, interest rates will stay at 0%. People who were overdue on payments prior to the outbreak will be automatically reinstated under a previous extension given in April. How do I submit an application for student loan forgiveness? Details have not been released, but keep a watch on the Federal Student Assistance website for updates in the coming days. As graduate student debt eligible, yes, federal student loans used to fund graduate degrees are eligible for forgiveness. What if my student loan balance contains a high amount of interest? For the purposes of this program, interest is considered part of the balance. Forgiveness will reduce your overall debt by $10,000. Will I be required to pay taxes on the amount I've been forgiven? No, Congress repealed loan forgiveness taxes until 2025. According to the nonprofit Charge Foundation, certain states may tax canceled debt, although it is unclear if this will happen. Are Parent Plus loans eligible? Parent Plus loans are included in the forgiveness scheme, but are subject to the same $250,000 income restriction for families as the rest of the cancellation. Parent Plus loans vary from other federal education loans in that they can be used to fund college students' expenditures other than tuition, such as books and housing and board. According to the Department of Education, parents of 3.6 million kids owed more than $107 billion in Parent Plus loans as of March 2022. This amounts to around 6% of total federal student debt owned by Americans. If a parent took out a Parent Plus loan on behalf of a student and the same student took out a direct loan, both would be eligible for relief because the cancellation is per borrower, not per student. That implies that anyone with federal student loans held by the Education Department who fulfills the income standards is eligible for cancellation. Where can I find out if I have a Pell Grant? Under the Biden plan, about 27 million Pell Grant recipients will be eligible for up to $20,000 in loan forgiveness. Pell Grants are government scholarships for low-income Americans who can presently receive up to $6,895 each year for up to 6 years. According to the Department of Education, nearly every Pell Grant user hailed from a household earning less than $60,000 per year, and Pell Grant recipients often face more difficulties repaying their loan than other borrowers. Pell awards are not ordinarily required to be repaid, although beneficiaries frequently take out extra student loans. This substantial assistance for Pell borrowers contributes significantly to racial fairness in cancellation. Because student debt exacerbates existing injustices, the racial wealth gap implies that students of color, particularly Black and Latino students, are more likely to come from low-income families, have student debt, and borrow in greater amounts. Check any emails you've received that outline your FAFSA award to see if you have a Pell Grant. How many people will be helped by FIS? According to official figures, around 43 million Americans have federal student debt, with an average balance of $37,667. One-third owing less than $10,000, the majority owing less than $20,000. More than $1.6 trillion in federal student debt exists. Will I see relief if I've already paid off my student loans? The Biden student loan forgiveness is only intended to apply to people who already have school debt. However, if you've made voluntary payments after March 2020, when payments were suspended, you can request a refund, according to the Federal Office of Student Aid. Will Biden student loan forgiveness is certainly oxymoron, because Congress has never explicitly granted the president the right to eliminate debt. The White House may face legal challenges to the idea. The Biden administration is basing its power on the coronavirus outbreak and a 2003 statute aimed at assisting military personnel. We don't yet know how any legal action will affect the timeline for Biden's student loan forgiveness. What repayment plan is proposed by the Department of Education? The Department of Education has suggested a repayment plan in which monthly installments would be limited to no more than 5% of a borrower's discretionary income, down from 10% currently. Borrowers must apply for the repayment plan if it is accepted, which might take up to a year. According to a government news release, a single borrower earning $38,000 per year would pay $31 per month under the idea. The amount considered non-discretionary income will also be increased, albeit the number has not been specified by the government. Discretionary income is typically defined as what remains after paying for necessities such as food and rent, but for student loan repayment purposes, it is calculated using a formula that considers the difference between a borrower's annual income and the federal poverty line, as well as family size and geographic location. What makes income-driven repayment difficult is that it ignores your other responsibilities, such as your rent payment. If someone is living paycheck to paycheck and their rent takes half of their salary and their vehicle payment takes the other, they must make a decision. Unfortunately, income-driven repayment does not account for this, but it is a possibility. What if I cannot pay even with loan forgiveness? Borrowers who are unable to pay risk delinquency and eventually default once payments restart. This might harm your credit score and make you ineligible for more assistance. The plan outlined by Biden also includes a proposal to restrict payback on undergraduate loans at 5% of monthly income. Proposals like this one can take a year or more to adopt, and the small print is unclear. If you have worked for a government agency or a nonprofit organization, you may be qualified for the Biden Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which may be found here.